Hey guys, this is The Clip, Kingdom Life podcast, conversations centered around kingdom life. And this is not just any podcast, this is the absolute first episode. So you're joining in to what is going to be an iconic podcast for young adults everywhere. Actually, later on, jump in the comments and tell us where you're tuning into this podcast from, because we want to know where are you in your day right now. But I'm Emily, this is Brian, my wonderful, incredible husband, and we will be hosting this podcast together. Brian, tell us a little bit about what this podcast day is going to look like.
Yeah, well, this podcast, as Em said, is centered around kingdom conversations. So what we want to do is equip you guys to develop kingdom thinking and kingdom habits so that ultimately our lives can reflect kingdom living. And today we have the absolute honor and privilege of hearing from our very first guest, Pastor Josh Pellowe. How are you going this morning, Pastor Josh?
Yeah, doing well. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
That's all right.
Great.
Well, just a bit of background on Pastor Josh, if you don't know him. He's got extensive ministry experience, and he even had business experience before jumping into ministry life. He's been the senior pastor of Kingdom Hope now into his third year, and he's just doing such an incredible job leading this church, seeing growth and just seeing so many great things happening here. And you've also got four kids, an amazing wife. So do you have any spare time? That was my question this morning.
Not a lot.
Not a lot of spare time?
No, not a lot.
Okay.
If I want to spare time, I've got to get up super early.
Yep.
Or Bonnie and I, we have about maybe an hour or so to ourselves every night. Yeah.
What about hobbies though? Like what do you get up to when you do have a spare bit of time?
Running.
Running.
I love running.
Wow.
Yeah,
You
running.
love running.
I love running. AirPods go in.
Yep.
I put on some tunes, mostly worship.
Perfect.
Sometimes some really cheesy motivational speech, like that
Yeah,
gym
yeah.
type
Ooh.
stuff. Love a bit of cheese motivation, and just hit the footpath and off I go.
Up
yeah.
at 4:34 before the enemy, or a bit of Jocko Willink in there, maybe?
I call it bachelor time. I call it bachelor time. If I get up before the rest of the house, it's bachelor time.
That's
I
perfect.
get to do whatever I want.
Yeah,
That's nice.
Love that.
I'm learning this lifestyle of an early bird.
Yeah.
And it's actually quite fruitful and nice. It's the way to go.
Yeah, no, it's
That's
so
right.
true. Well, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself? If people don't know you, like, what would you say about Pastor Josh Pellowe?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think probably the number one thing is that, obviously first a son of God,
Yeah, great.
believer.
Yeah.
I think my greatest testimony is that I was born into a Christian home.
Yeah, amen.
And that was just the biggest blessing I ever had. I had parents who taught me the Bible, taught me how to live God's way, and I'm just super grateful for it because I know God personally, and that's probably the number one thing you need to know about me is that I just love God and chase Him every moment I can get, and from that, I obviously love my wife unbelievably because she is just the greatest gift that God ever gave me.
She's amazing.
She is the spirit of wisdom in my life. And it's a fun adventure serving God with her, and we have 4 children, like you said, and so our house is loud, our house is crazy. But
How do you keep it clean?
we don't.
That's good to know. If we're aiming for 4 kids, we can't keep our house very clean.
We try super hard, and look, they're getting a bit older. Our youngest is 4 now, so actually a clean home is now within reach.
Ooh,
so
really?
I've been enjoying it. It's great.
That's nice.
So, but it's a house. It's hectic, crazy, and messy, but it's also full of joy and a lot of laughter.
That's so good.
And they're just they themselves. They love Jesus. As a matter of fact, we had a parent-teacher interview recently, and I wasn't impressed by I was impressed, but I didn't really care as much about all their other results, which they're doing really great in. But the number one thing one of their teachers said to us was, she loves Jesus, talking about Luell. And number 3, she's like, man, she loves Jesus.
Amazing.
And I was like, that was the most proudest thing that I could have heard on that day. So absolutely love it. They all love Jesus, love coming to church. When they have to stay home from church for whatever reason, they're devastated. So they love God, love the house of God, and love each other. So it's cool.
Great.
Cool. Well, before you got married and before family life, what did you get up to in your young adult years? Tell us maybe a funny story, iconic story.
Iconic moments.
Yeah, well, as a young adult, I think I was pretty fortunate, to be honest, because I did a job I loved. So a lot of my teachers said, what are you going to do at uni? And I said, well, actually, I'm going to become a personal trainer. Yeah. And so I ended up becoming a personal trainer, and just went straight to the gym. Basically, I just didn't go to uni at first. Yeah. I went straight to the gym. I loved what I did there. Had a lot of fun. Ended up in strength and conditioning. training
Nice.
professional athletes and teams, and it was
the dream of every young lad.
Come
was
on,
cool.
we want to
Like,
know max
Most.
bench, surely.
Max bench.
Max
I-
bench.
That's
Come
what
on.
everyone's thinking. It. You said you're a gym guy back in the day. So what were you doing?
I think when I've been super disciplined,
Yeah.
I think maybe once I've like cracked over 100.
Okay, that's good.
Whoa,
Triple
nice.
digits. We'll take that. We'll take that. I reckon.
But
That's pretty good.
that was probably a small window. Like
Just 1 month, maybe.
You were the trainer, not the one
I
on
was
the bench.
exactly
You were getting people
Those
into
who
the 3
can't
digits.
do teach.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. But also, I played a lot of cricket.
Yep, cool.
Played a lot of cricket. Loved being at the gym. Loved sport, and also the other number one thing I had as a young adult. I always had this dream when I was in school, because back then this was like the most epic car a
Yep.
young man could have. I grew up in the country.
This is going to be great.
It was a dual cab Hilux
Oh.
SR5.
Yeah, okay.
That's
okay.
good.
And I achieved my dream. Got my beautiful black dual cab
Dual
SR5
cab
Hilux.
Oh, come on now.
Driving around,
Yeah.
frosted tips.
Yep.
No.
Eyebrow ring.
Yeah, okay.
Did you really have an eyebrow?
ring, frosted tips.
Oh
and
my
I
Michael
was-
Clark
goodness.
tips.
yeah,
I cannot
had
picture
pup
this.
vibes. Yeah, certainly.
I was seeing an anniversary photo recently, and then when we were thinking about iconic young adult moments for Pastor Josh,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, gee, what would Josh have looked like pre his wedding? Because you're looking pretty early 2000s in that
Yeah.
wedding photo. So
Yeah.
frosted tips and
Frosted tips, eyebrow ring. Used to play
was-
drums in a punk rock band.
Oh,
yeah.
that's so
Wow.
good. That is
Yeah.
pretty iconic. Where was one of the places you played at with that band? Did you
We,
guys
we
do-
played at a surf competition down at
gnarly.
I forget the town now.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
okay.
but it was a Christian worship punk rock band.
Okay,
And we
yeah.
were called Epic.
Epic. Oh,
called
that
Epic.
is epic.
And it was an acronym for endless progression in Christ.
Oh, that's
and
so
it was just
That's
like
great.
it was
Doesn't
just
sound
our,
very punk
Yeah.
rock.
it was just our kind of youth.
Yeah.
It was kind of our youth worship team.
Yeah,
and we
it's
ended up
great.
like leading worship at this like surf competition or something down
Yeah.
at like I think it was like Ballina or somewhere down there. but
Wow.
yeah. And
Is that
That
what
is
they
legendary.
coined it before spiritual formation? Was that endless
I
progressive?
came up with that name. I was like really proud of that name. I was like, we
Endless
had hats made up that we got
Yeah.
embroidered at
Okay.
like at the Hyperdome. And like,
Really?
we used to wear
hats.
brand merch.
All right, we
you
need to
know.
get some of that footage, I reckon, Jethro. We need to get a photo of the hat and we'll chuck it maybe in the comments or we'll link it to the podcast. I think
That is
that's-
great.
it's gotta
Oh,
get
you
there.
know what? Actually, watch out for a Pastor Josh
Yeah.
young adult starter pack.
Starter pack. Oh, yeah, we can do that too. I reckon.
That's going to be
Frosted
great.
tips, eyebrow ring.
Yeah. Okay,
Nice.
cool.
So actually the first time, or one of the earlier times, probably
Yeah.
for Brian and I, that we got to know you was at City Point Ministry College.
Yes.
And you teach there a subject quite often,
Yeah.
communication
Yeah.
for ministry. And it like totally threw upside down everything that I thought I knew about communication. And I learned that I actually didn't know anything about communication.
Right.
I mean, you were good, but I mean, you learned a few things. I learned a few like I learned a lot as well. Like it's a really good course.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we hear and we know firsthand you're a bit of the expert
Yes.
on communication. So we want to dive into that a bit today, which
Yeah.
would be really exciting to chat about.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
More so in the life of young adults and more specific to maybe what we're
Yeah.
actually facing in our world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you find yourself? Would you say you're passionate about communication?
Yeah, very much so, yeah.
Yeah, great. So how did you find yourself even like lecturing and teaching on this
Yeah.
subject? Like what's the journey to you becoming passionate about this subject?
Look, that's actually a bit of a God story because I was in uni. I went to
Okay.
uni later in life. I went to uni as a mature age student in my late 20s.
You were saying you were like PT.
Yeah, I was
I'm not
like
going to
PT.
uni. And I'm
Yeah.
like, hang on, this guy's so educated.
I know, yeah.
Let's-
My
let's talk
teacher
about
said,
that.
why aren't you going to uni? I'm like, no, I'm going to the gym.
Yeah.
And but later on in life, I realised actually I should have gone to uni. And
Yes.
so I went. And
Nice.
I ended up getting a couple of masters. I ended up doing an MBA.
Cool.
And my other masters I was doing was a master's of finance. And I'm in the
Nice.
middle of a master of finance and I'm in a class and I'm like, I just got this overwhelming sense I'm not meant to be here.
Yeah.
Like undeniably, move of the spirit on my heart. This is the
Yeah.
wrong class for me to be in.
Right.
And so I went home. It was a bit of a weird feeling. Couldn't sleep that night. Now,
Wow.
I have the gift of sleep. Like, that is a
That's
spiritual
awesome.
anointing on my life. Like, I can sleep through anything. But that night I couldn't sleep. And so I said to God, I said, all right, Holy Spirit, either you let me know what you're trying to tell me or you let me go to sleep. They are your two options.
That's a pretty
And
good
I was
ultimatum.
getting pretty cranky with the
Yeah.
Lord because I love sleep. And so I got up and I started looking at what what another option for my other masters could be, and I came across this subject called Integrated Marketing Communications, IMC. Never heard of it before.
Wow.
And it was an option for the particular master's course that I was on to actually do a master's of IMC.
Wow.
And so I just knew it was the Lord. I enrolled in it, did it the next day. That was a Thursday night. The reason I remember that is because on the Friday I went to uni, changed my master's double. And that Friday was the very last Friday I could have changed my second master's.
Ooh.
Like, had the Holy Spirit not kept me up that night, I would have missed out on the opportunity to actually change my second master's. I would have been stuck in the Masters of Finance.
Wow.
And so I changed it.
Challenging.
It would have been. I don't have your brain or your skill set. So
I don't want to probably be an either. No.
Yeah, I just want to colour things in and make things pretty. Like, you've got to make things balanced. So I ended up in a master's at IMC, and then later on I'm sitting in that class. I'm like, God, I know you've called me to this class. I know I'm meant to be here without a shadow of a doubt, but I also know I'm called to pastor. Why am I in a master's of communications? Like, what on earth am I doing here?
True.
And Jesus just dropped in my heart ever so gently, but ever so clearly. He said, I've created you to communicate.
Yeah, wow.
Don't change yourself.
Wow.
And so I was trying to fit into what I thought I should be. You know, an MBA and a Master's of Finance is what I thought I should be. But Jesus said to me, no, I've created you to communicate.
That's good.
Don't change yourself. And I'm like, okay, so why am I here then instead of, studying a Master's of Theology or something like that? And he said to me, really obviously, and I almost feel like it was a dumb question now when he gave me the answer, he's like, because I need you to communicate Jesus. I'm like, oh yeah, good point. Yeah,
that's true.
So I feel like God has trained me and equipped me to essentially fulfill the mission that He's called me to, and that is to communicate Jesus effectively.
That's great.
And so from there, I ended up becoming really passionate, mostly about organisational communication. Both in-house, but also external.
Yeah, cool.
That's great.
But then also interpersonal communication was something that I really, from organisational communication. I found out that actually interpersonal communication.
It all starts there. Yeah. And I think too, it's really great to hear that you went on that journey through more of a secular learning and understanding of just general good communication before jumping into the theology and stuff, because I suppose like that is going to better equip you for that next season anyway as well.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I found that. And so like I did my bachelor in ministry, but then I really felt like God, put some secular skills in my hands.
That's great.
So that I could establish His kingdom in a unique way that He's called me to do it.
Yeah, that's incredibly important.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of our listeners probably know communication is important, but like, why would you say good communication is important? Like, what are the pitfalls of poor communication? Like, why should I value communication or even learning about it when, I've grown up learning this language? Like, I've learned from this person or that person. Yeah, like why is good communication skills something I should learn or want to get better at?
Yeah, I think we just have to go right back to the very beginning and realise that it's actually part of our Imago Dei.
Yes.
Which is, just a biblical terminology or a theological terminology to say that we were created in God's image.
Yes.
So when God made us in His image, we got to realise that actually God communicates. He's a communicating being.
Yes,
and
all the time.
And He's breathed that into us. He created through communication, through the spoken word. He communicates within Himself. Holy Spirit, Father, and Jesus.
Yes.
They have community that is based on communication within each other. But also, God wants to communicate with us. Like He has revealed Himself. He is speaking to us. He has spoken through the prophets. He's spoken through His word. He speaks through His Spirit today. And so, in our communication, we're actually displaying one of the greatest gifts that God gave us is to also be communication beings. Birds and dogs and elephants, they all communicate in a sense, but we do it in the way that God does it, and that's through dialogue, understanding, reasoning, logic.
Great.
It's a gift that He's given humanity.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's so true. And I guess what we were noticing is maybe across the generations, young adults maybe being looked at by other generations, older generations, might get a bit of a label or be put in a category of we're not maybe right up there with our communication just yet. Like, would you say, what do you think those generations are seeing in this generation that we might be missing or haven't quite got right? Or are we just young, without experience, immature, maybe? These are some of the labels, that young adults can get.
No, I think I know what you're getting at. You're talking
Yeah.
about like the differences in communication between like older gen, younger gen.
Yeah.
Why?
What do we seem to be missing that we haven't quite nailed it yet?
Yeah, I think there's probably two main facets of differences in communication between the generations. One would be technological.
Yep.
Yeah. Very true.
And so, your baby boomers and your Gen Xers, and these guys are probably, 45, 50 plus. Let's just say that.
Yep.
Because even millennials these days, millennials sounds quite young, but even millennials are around about 40 these,
Okay.
your upper end
Yeah.
of millennials
There you go.
are 40. Matter of fact, I'm a millennial.
Oh, there you go. You just scrape
Yeah,
in your
exactly.
I think you are, and I just am.
Yeah, right.
The
Okay.
next generation, I'm like, oh man, I
Wow.
want to be a millennial.
So I'm 38 and I'm up the top end
Okay,
of
yeah.
millennials, and so we're much more familiar with technology in
Yeah,
the way
that's
that we
right.
text, Facebook, all that sort of stuff. Although
Yeah.
back when I was a young adult, it was MySpace.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
MySpace.
so-
Did you have a
Bebo.
profile? Did you have a profile?
I didn't.
Oh,
I didn't have a
no.
profile.
We should have got that too.
MSN.
Actually,
MSN.
I think I did. I think I set up one, but it was
All
like it just seemed too complicated for me. So I just
All right, we'll look into that, Jethro, too.
But back, obviously technology has influenced communication, like it has all of the ages. Like you even think
Yeah.
back to the printing press,
Yeah.
that revolutionized communication. Radio revolutionized communication.
Yeah.
So every technological advance, the generations have had to adapt as they go along. And so there'll be technological differences where your younger generations will be more okay with a message texting or
Yeah.
Yeah,
or
that's right.
whatever. Whereas the older guys, they're still a little bit more old school. They'll actually use their phone, even though their phone could, land a module on the moon. They'll only use it to call people.
Yes.
That's
True.
right.
Yeah.
Whereas,
And leave voicemails.
and leave voicemails.
That's
yeah.
very true.
Lots of voicemails.
Exactly.
Do you have experience with that?
I
do you?
have experience. Loved family members.
Lots of family members
Many
leaving the voicemails. Okay.
I think the other area, though, that's a practical one. I think the other area, though, is that there is, I think there's a differences in emotional intelligence between
Okay.
the older
Right.
and the younger
That's good.
generations.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the older generation may be able to process their emotion, in general, process their emotion in a more healthy manner, and they can digest emotions and digest stress. Just through life experience, they've learnt those skills.
Those skills, yeah.
But sometimes they haven't always been taught a level of emotional intelligence that includes self-awareness.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. That's a good point.
And so their self-awareness, which is a certain big ingredient in emotional intelligence, might not be one of their strengths, although they're very good at digesting
Yep.
the emotions that they are feeling. Even though they might not be able to name them or express them,
Yeah.
they've learned how to get on with life with them.
Yes.
Whereas the younger generation, man, they can name every single emotion they're having,
Yeah.
and they will Facebook their emotions.
Yes, good point.
And they will let the world in because they are really self-aware
Okay.
of what they're feeling, what they're going through, and they're happy for it to be
Yes.
publicly consumed.
Yeah.
However, they
Yeah.
probably can't digest it
Okay.
in the
Yeah.
same skill set
Yes.
that may be the more mature. So when it comes to communication,
Yeah.
there might be an increased vulnerability that the older generations aren't quite used to coming
Yep.
from young
Yeah,
adults.
that's true.
Yep.
However, from the older generation, they may be looking at those processed emotions and thinking, well, you know what, that's lovely that you're feeling that, but can we kind of just get on with what's
Yeah.
Move
important.
Yeah.
And so there can be a breakdown in communication
Yeah.
between those. And maybe we just need to learn from each other. Like
That's a good
maybe
point.
some
Yeah.
great self-awareness needs to come
That's true.
from some
Yeah.
older generation. Actually, it's okay for me to name that emotion and process it
Yes.
healthily.
Yeah.
But then also from the younger generations, maybe the way in which we digest emotions
Yeah.
could be something that we could strengthen from those who've
Yeah.
gone before.
Well, what I was even going to say to that is then what does healthy self-awareness look like? Because if you're self-aware, like you're saying, maybe you air your feelings publicly all the time. Is that great? Or if you're
Yeah.
super self-aware, maybe you're critical of yourself. Like,
I was going to say, piggyback off
Yeah.
of this self-awareness topic, there's a self-awareness that can acknowledge emotions, but there's another level of that
Yeah.
self-awareness of then how do I move forward? What do I do with this now?
Yeah.
Because I feel like you said, through life experience, you might pick up on how to bridge that gap a bit better through different experiences. But for somebody who hasn't had
Yeah.
that many experiences, maybe that many hardships or challenges, different seasons of life, we're probably still stuck between a little bit of acknowledging it, but actually like, what do we do next? How do I move
Yeah, so the
through
question being, what does healthy self-awareness around that look like?
Yeah, well, I think there's probably, once again, two applications, and I think you've actually nutted them out brilliantly. One is self-awareness as to what I'm feeling.
Okay.
The other level of self-awareness is what am I making other people feel?
Right. Yep.
How am I impacting the
Right.
room when
That's
I walk into it?
Are we stepping into emotional intelligence a little
Well,
bit
self-awareness is certainly a part of emotional intelligence, and that's a big part of it. So I might walk into a room and I might know I'm feeling grumpy,
Yeah.
but am I also self-aware enough to realise that my grumpiness is now impacting the mood of the room,
Great point.
and I'm making everyone else put up with my emotion, whether they like it or not. Or maybe I'm not aware of how my body language, my mood, my language, my tone of voice, my choice of words is actually impacting my team that I'm working with.
Shifting
Yeah.
atmosphere.
Maybe the people I'm leading,
Yep.
shifting atmospheres. And so, those two levels of self-awareness. What am I feeling?
Yes.
And what are my strengths, weaknesses? Who am I? What's my identity?
Yep.
How am I feeling? But then, how do I, as a person, impact that room? And what's Brian feeling and thinking? Like, I might
Yes.
recognise facial expressions, body language, mood, choice
Yep.
of words from Brian, and I'm aware that it makes me angry, but I lack the self-awareness to actually go, well, Brian might just be having a really bad day, and I might just need to come alongside him.
Right.
And I can digest my emotions really easily in
Yeah.
order to lay them aside and through empathy
Yeah.
help Brian with his day.
Yeah.
Great.
And so those two facets both need to be worked on.
Yeah, that's so true.
And
Yeah.
then, like, I suppose that's a good point, is like, how do you know as a friend? So say, you're mates with someone, young adults, how do you know when to correct your brother in Christ versus just have a bit of grace for them? Like, how would you
Yeah.
differentiate
That's a
maybe
hard
that?
one.
Yeah, that is a hard one to navigate, and I always, and although this is a bit of a cheat sheet,
Yep.
my always first go to is ask Holy Spirit,
Yep.
Great.
Cool.
because we need His wisdom.
Yes, we
always
do.
do.
But let's get even more practical than
Yep.
that, and that is on an organisational level.
Yep.
All communication and teamwork is built on a foundation of trust.
Yes, it
Yes.
is.
If you don't
Yep.
have trust, then some of these skills that I'm about and some of these tactics I'm about to talk about, they won't work anyway.
That's very true.
Really good.
This is assuming that you have a level of trust with this person.
Yep.
And so with your friend,
Yeah.
it would depend on how much trust you have with them. Are they an
Yeah.
acquaintance,
Yep.
or are they someone that you've journeyed with a very long time?
Great.
And have
you're
you?
talking mutual trust, aren't you?
Yeah, certainly mutual trust.
Not one
That's a good
and
point.
not the other.
Yeah,
Yeah,
mutual
that's
trust.
right. Yeah. Although in those situations, there may be self-disclosure might be greater on one side because that you trust them a lot more than they trust you. And so the self-disclosure
Sure.
might be higher on this
Yeah.
side. And,
Sure.
and that, that's a different set of scenarios to traverse. But let's say there is mutual trust.
Right.
Brian and I, we've been journeying together a long time. I know he's got the best intentions for me. I've got
That's
the best
true.
intentions for him. Because of that, there can be a truth and an honour in honesty
Yes, absolutely.
that will be accepted because of the trust relationship that we have. But if we're just acquaintances and Brian comes up to me and he's like, Josh, you know what, the way you speak is actually quite disrespectful at times, and look, I just don't think it's landing. I don't think it's landing well. In me, because there's no trust, I'll be like, I'm sorry, who are you? What was your name again?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's great.
Whereas
Yeah.
if we've journeyed together, I'll be like, oh, really? Because I trust that
Yeah.
he has the best intentions for me.
Great. That's really important.
Yeah.
And then I guess then looking at that, we're always looking for feedback. And
Right.
but then under this understanding, we want to be cautious probably as well. Who's giving us that feedback? And so what do you do when you're receiving feedback from those maybe that you haven't been able to build that relationship with? How do you filter
Yeah.
that feedback?
Or even if you don't trust them, you're getting a lot of feedback from people you don't trust or have a relationship with.
Yeah.
How would you?
Just particularly in your
Yeah.
in your life, in your role that you play.
Or maybe even say workplace. So we talk specific for
Yeah.
young adults in a workplace. There's someone that gives them feedback, and there's not the trust. Or how do you navigate a conversation there?
Yeah, well, first of all, it has to be an absolute in your own heart, and I say heart, not mind, in
Yeah.
your own heart.
Yes.
You have to just come to the conclusion that there's actually no bad feedback.
Great.
Good point.
I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah, every single bit of feedback you ever receive will be a gift.
Yep.
And you need
Yes.
to see it as a gift.
Yep.
So important.
Because the person who gave it to you has had to push past their own insecurities.
Yeah.
They've had to
Yep.
push past their own awkwardness.
Yep.
Yeah.
They've had to become self-aware enough to realize that this may benefit you.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so they then push past through all of that to give you a gift.
Wow.
And so you
Right.
need to always appreciate any bit of feedback you ever get.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you need to accept all the feedback you ever
That's
get.
good.
Yeah.
But it does mean that you can trust the gift
Yeah.
of the feedback
Great.
Yeah.
at all times. Now, of course, there may be some exceptions to the rules where
Yeah.
people might have an agenda, or
Yep.
they may just want to be critical, or maybe their own insecurities is what they're speaking out of. But still, treat it as a gift.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there may be 10% truth in that
Yeah.
on top of the agenda that they have,
Absolutely.
but still 10% of truth in that you may actually be able to benefit from.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so-
You want to be looking for that, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because of the effort.
Because
and
of the effort.
sacrifice they've gone to
Yeah.
go out of their way to give you this feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and then I healthily, in my own self-reflection
Yep.
and self-awareness, go and I process that and take it before the Lord.
Yep.
Yes.
Lord, this person said this.
Yep.
Do I need to take that on board? Do I
Yeah.
just need to, maybe let that one go through to the keeper?
Yeah.
Cricket terms.
Or do I?
It's important. If you don't know that one, guys, come on. Through the key. Seriously.
Yeah, do I just need to disregard, or do I need to own it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can process that by yourself with the Lord, or even with the trusted one. Like, say, if you've got a spouse, process it with them.
Yeah.
Good close friends, maybe your pastor.
Yep.
Say, hey, this is what this person has told me. Or even your direct report. Hey, this is what a team colleague has told me. What do you think? Do I need to pay attention to that, or can I just disregard that?
Yeah.
And once again, that'll come down to the level of your emotional intelligence, your ability to
will.
process
Yes.
feedback.
So that's really important.
Yeah, and then I suppose, how would you grow in that, like processing feedback, or even just in your emotional intelligence in general? Are there certain things that...
How do we grow?
Yeah, like how would we grow in that? Is it courses? Is it learning from other people? Like what are the different ways maybe that we could grow in that?
Specifically in emotional
Yeah,
intelligence?
probably overall, yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of is the banner that we're talking about with self-awareness sitting
I
within
think
it
so,
and
yeah.
that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah, emotional
great.
intelligence is quite a broad term.
Yep.
There's a few
Yes.
facets to it, but if we isolate it to emotional intelligence, how do we grow in that?
Yeah.
I think probably two main ways you could grow emotional intelligence. One is get a coach,
Yeah,
Yeah,
good
that's
point.
or a mentor, or a discipler, someone that you can just get alongside and can have a different set of eyes on you than you.
Yeah,
Great.
Have an objective outside person
yeah,
speaking into some things that you might not be aware of, like
Great.
yeah, love
the way
that.
you carry yourself, the
Yep.
way you impact a room, the way your tone of voice in certain conversations,
Yeah.
how you perform your role.
Yeah,
If you don't ask or have someone in your world that can actually say, hey, here are your strengths,
Yep.
but here's some weaknesses that you might
Yeah.
want to just bolster up a little bit, or just be aware of.
Yep.
Sometimes
Yeah.
we don't even need to bolster up weaknesses. Sometimes we just need to be aware of them.
yeah, great
Yes,
point.
exactly.
Yeah, that's very true.
Tiger Woods was
Yeah.
strong in so many areas, and his coach wanted to improve his bunker shots.
Yep.
And Tiger said to him, "No, I'm just not going to hit into the bunkers. I'm just going to focus on my strengths.
Yeah.
and not even
Great.
go in the bunkers."
Yeah, that's true.
So,
Great. So for the young adults out there who are like, okay, great, I probably need this mentor, this coach. How do you set up that relationship with
Yeah.
that person for it to be fruitful, successful? For me, I know in the past, I've just straight up gone up to people and said, I give you permission. Like I just really blatantly say, please tell me if you notice this, this, or this, or anything that you think will benefit my growth. Like love prefacing these relationships with, I'm giving you permission to just
that's good.
be honest with me because I want to grow. Is there other practicals around setting up that relation, or even who you might be considering to choose to be that influence in your life? How do you consider, what are you looking for?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's
Yeah.
some people maybe who are out there looking at people who they already know they agree with on a lot of things.
Yeah.
So potentially that could be affirming a lot of, behaviors that they might need to change. So
Yeah.
any other things that you can think of in setting that up?
Yeah, there's two really practical things. First of all, I'm a big fan of cross-generational discipleship.
good.
So get someone who isn't in the same season of life as you.
Great.
So like
Yeah.
for Bonnie and I, we got young kids. So we would be looking, say, for empty nesters.
Yep.
Or
Awesome.
we would be looking for maybe someone who has teenage kids.
Yeah.
Someone
Yes.
who's sort of gone before us, experienced the next season of life. So if you're
Yeah.
a young adult, I'd be looking for a young married or a young family or even a baby boomer, even
Yeah.
an empty nester.
They're great.
Go up.
We love them.
Like they've
You
got
can
life
do it.
experience. Yeah. There was, from my punk rock days, here's a
Oh,
flashback.
yeah,
There was
okay,
a band called Limp Bizkit back in the day, so I used to listen to a little bit. I'm not really familiar with what their rating is anymore, so I probably don't listen to them. But
Yeah, great.
They had this one line that always stuck with me in a song. They said, "Life is a lesson, you learn it when you're through."
Okay. Yeah.
And so it always stuck with me. I'm like, that's so true. It's kind of cruel, but it's kind of true. But here's the hack.
Yep.
Go to someone who's been through more life than you have
Yes.
and learn what they've learned.
Yeah, great.
So that would be the first thing. The second thing is set rules of expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Yep.
Nothing will damage communication or relationships more than unsaid expectations.
That's true.
So if you say to someone, hey, I really want to enter into a mentor, coaching, discipleship relationship, don't just leave that hanging in the ethereal unknown. Set some rules of engagement.
Yep.
Yeah.
Set some, make sure the unset expectations are actually set.
Yes.
So you might
Yep.
say, okay, what that looks like to me is I'd really love a phone call once a week,
Great.
or just a coffee once a month.
Yep.
And
Like
just
a clear rhythm to the relationship.
cadence,
Yes,
rhythm, but
yep.
also, once again, rules of engagement. Okay,
Yeah.
I want you to speak into my marriage, or I want you to speak into my
Yep.
work life.
Right.
I want you to speak into my communication
Yep.
or my spiritual development.
Yes.
What is it that you're wanting? Or say there's nothing off the table. Nothing off the table, whatever you
Right.
notice you can speak into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you have something unsaid,
Yes.
and you're then putting that expectation on them and then they disappoint you,
Yeah.
that's really on us, not on them.
Exactly.
Because
You're
we didn't
expecting
say
them
it.
to mind read.
You're expecting them to mind
They
read.
can't.
Yeah.
Did you learn that the hard way in marriage? I did.
Oh, wow. That's a big one, actually. Unset expectations in marriage. That's a whole podcast in itself.
You know what?
It is, actually.
Could even be on our next episode. So, there we go.
That's right.
Sneaky plug for that.
Yeah, no, that's really, really good.
Yeah.
It's really important to find that person out there, those people. And I enjoy perspectives I receive from different people as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
But very intentionally selected people
Yeah.
who I know we have that mutual trust, there's honesty, and they really also are passionate to see me grow as much as I'm passionate to be on that growth journey.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, absolutely. And I think you picked on something good there because I got more than one coach, more than one.
Good.
And it depends on what their strength or their specialty is. So
Yeah,
exactly.
I've got someone I go to for leadership.
Yep.
Because that's their strength. I want to be a leader like they lead. But then I've got other people I go to for spiritual environments that they set around their life and marriage and church. And so I go glean from them around that. And then I've
Yep.
got other people that I learn from. I've even got a non-Christian mentor that I learn from around business because
Yep.
he's just gifted around business and money and finance. And so I go to learn from him. I don't go to learn from him about the Bible.
Yeah.
And I don't
Yes.
go to learn finance from my spiritual coach
Exactly.
and mentor.
Yeah.
I go to the right people and I surround myself with almost a coalition and a collaboration that I can glean and
Yeah.
learn from and just improve anywhere and grow anywhere that I can grow.
Yeah, great.
Sounds like a pretty good wise counsel you got going on there.
Yeah, well, I
Fantastic.
need it.
You
I
need
need all
it.
the help I can get. Like,
And that's also the first step is realizing that all of us need this kind of growth.
Yeah, 100%.
We can
Yeah.
always be growing. So that's the first step as well. Because you're not going to have a mentor if you don't think that you're going to,
Yeah.
Correct.
that you need to grow.
Yeah, and I'd say you definitely have to humble yourself as well because if you're struggling or if you're someone who like you guys say, if you think you know all of it or you're not willing to learn, that's probably a big point, isn't it, around humility? Was there ever a time you struggled with humility or a time where you felt in your journey that you've struggled even with pride? Is that something you've...
It can get in the way for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think anything will kill you quicker than pride.
Okay, yeah.
I agree.
And actually, one of my mentors that I've mentioned, I had a fitness mentor.
Yep.
Great.
He ended up becoming my best friend, but and best man at my wedding. He smashed that out of me as a young adult.
Yeah,
That's
okay,
awesome.
great.
Brutally
Yeah.
smashed it out of me because back then I was I was a business owner.
So ambitious, aren't you?
Ambitious,
going after
driven,
things.
yeah.
Sometimes you can get a little bit caught up in your bubble and you're
Yeah.
I think I'm more awesome
Yeah.
Yeah.
than I am.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because your experience is so small, you
Yeah.
haven't actually met those people who've just so amazing, who
Yeah.
you've been able to go, hang on a second.
yeah,
I've got such a long journey to walk here. I'm not amazing.
I'm
Yeah.
not amazing. And he absolutely brutally just killed it in me. And it's the
Great.
greatest gift he ever gave me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because only when you walk in true humility
Yep.
and you're not ego driven, like so much that we do is just
Yeah.
driven by our own ego as
Yeah.
opposed to an outworking of a demonstration of God's glory.
Yep.
And when we're ever driven by self instead of driven by Him, it always results in death
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
the
It's very
life,
true.
the abundant
Always.
Zoe life that God has breathed into us. And
Yeah.
and so even though he was a non-Christian mentor of mine,
Yep.
one of the greatest gifts he ever gave me is he just absolutely stomped on my ego
Yeah.
and got it out of all of my hidden agendas.
That's
and,
great.
So good. Eh?
And it caused me to love Bonnie better. It caused
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
Great points.
to serve my clients better.
So true.
It just helped me in life in general. And
Yeah.
and it's a great gift.
Yeah. Cool.
fantastic.
Well, I know we could continue chatting about this
This almost
all
needs a
day.
part two.
Like, I
This
know
is
we
just
always
getting
need
off
a
the
part
ground.
two, I think. Hey, but I suppose as we wrap up today, what's like the one piece of gold or the one piece of advice you'd love young adults to take away around this subject of communication?
Yeah, I think if there's one thing I could tell any young adult, if you want to set yourself up for success in life,
Yeah, great.
leadership, love, relationships, marriage, success in all areas.
Yep.
I think there's two main skills that you need. You need to learn how to collaborate.
Yes.
You need people. As a matter of fact,
You
there's a famous
do.
study that actually indicates that the more relationships you have in life is a single determiner of how successful you will be in life.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. There you
Is
go.
that interesting?
So the more people you have in your community, well, it is interesting, but it's also God's design.
It
God
is.
said
Yeah, it's good.
it's not good for man to be alone.
Yep.
That's not isolated to marriage. That's talking about community.
Yeah.
And so the more in community you have, the more relationships, the more people in your network,
Yep.
Yeah.
actually is one of the greatest keys that we have to determine how successful you'll be in life.
Yep.
And so learn how to collaborate.
Yeah.
But the key competency that goes along with collaboration is communication.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you learn how to be a master communicator, your interpersonal skills will be better. Your intrapersonal skills
Yeah.
will be better.
Yes.
Learning to communicate with yourself
Yes.
it'll increase your success and your enjoyment in life, your joy in life.
Yeah.
So you learn how to collaborate, learn how to communicate,
Yep.
and it'll transform your whole world
Yes.
into the chief communicators designed for you, God Himself, as He breathed those skills into you.
Yeah, that's great.
So good. Well, two
Fantastic.
pieces of gold: collaboration, communication. You've heard it here on the first episode of the Kingdom Life podcast. Thanks for joining us today. We hope you guys
Yeah.
have a great rest of the day, and definitely tune in for our next episode dropping next month. See you guys.